Welcome to Exploring Places Unknown. I'm your host, Trey, and today I'm excited to have Miss Jayne Reynolds with us. Jayne is a board certified holistic nutritionist, a level 2 certified nutrition recovery coach, and an Amen Clinic certified brain health professional. Her mission is to change the way we think about mental health, helping clients improve their quality of life through simple changes in diet and lifestyle. And Jayne, welcome to the show. I'm so honored to have you here today. I've been waiting for this for a couple days, so I'm glad to have you on today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I think this is going to be an absolutely wonderful discussion.
And you know, the funny thing is, I knew you were coming on. I was like, this whole week, let me make sure I'm eating right. How am I going to get on here? How am I going to get on here and talk about eating healthy and I'm going to Whataburger or whatever it is? So
Right.
I'm glad to have you here today. And I believe that you have some tools that our listeners can use. We're definitely going to learn more about the gut to brain connection that's
Mhm.
going on there. I think that's very important. And when we kind of understand what our body is doing and with our brains, I think
Mhm.
we can make better decisions when it comes to food.
Well, I think so.
So to start off, can you share with us your personal journey and what led you to this unique approach to mental wellness?
Yeah, for sure. When I was very young, I had my first child, and just a few weeks after she was born, I had an E. coli infection, and it was pretty serious. I ended up in the hospital for a little while, and they gave me 7 bags of antibiotics over 3 days. I came home better, but having started this like gradual decline into anxiety, and I went to see my physician, who at the time was an ancient gentleman. I think he was probably in his 70s, who was like, "Oh, there, dear. You know, women who have had babies often have a hard time after their babies are born. And you're not sleeping. I don't expect that you would feel any better." So I just kind of took him at his word and just dealt with it, right? Like whenever it would come up, I would just deal with it. Well, progressively over 7 years, they just escalated. They got to the point where they were debilitating, and I was having anxiety attacks probably 3 or 4 times a day. They were lasting for an hour, hour and a half at a time. I had 3 very little kids at that point. I had my older one who had been born when I had the E. coli infection. Then I had twins right after. So I had 3 kids under 13 in 13 months. And so I was just really struggling. I was struggling to manage them. I was just dealing with this ongoing perpetual anxiety. And I tried a lot of things. I did talk therapy. I did antidepressants. I just went down to my regular doctor. I was like, I don't think I'm right. And they're like, here's a prescription, right? And then when the anxiety was really full throttle and I ended up in the ER with chest pain, they're like, here, try these benzos. And it was miraculous. Like I walked out of there and went home and made dinner. And my husband was like, what the heck is going on? It's like, turns out it's just anxiety. And that started, it helped, but it was so short term. And so I knew benzos were addictive. I didn't want to stay on them for a long time. So I think the lowest dose pill, whatever that is like 5 milligrams. I would cut it into quarters, and then I would have one at 4 points one quarter at 4 points during the day. One pill lasts through the whole day, but it still didn't solve it completely. And I was praying for answers. I was really struggling. And my mom flew out from the UK and she said, we need to have the elders of the church come and pray for you. It's like, okay. So she did. Within 2 weeks, I started getting answers that I had not been looking for. I didn't know they existed. And the first was a friend who reached out and said, you've tried all these conventional ways of doing things. I think you need to go and see a naturopath. Didn't know what a naturopath was. I didn't know about functional medicine. So I tried everything else, went to see her. And it took a little bit of time to kind of get some of those things figured out. She started with like basic, are you hydrated enough? Do you just very, very basic things. When those things didn't work, she helped me to do neurotransmitter testing. We started doing amino acid therapy. I had a chiropractor say, have you tried going gluten-free? So I went gluten-free. And a week after I went gluten-free, my anxiety attacks stopped completely. And they'd been going on for 7 years. So to have them just stop like that was miraculous to me. And it made me wonder what other pieces I was missing. So we did other delayed food sensitivity testing. I found out later I had reactive hypoglycemia. We can talk about the connection between blood sugar and panic later. All these different pieces came together and started me on this healing journey. And then it made me start asking, how do I help other people do this? Because I know I'm not the only one missing the puzzle pieces that was so foundational with my nutrition. It was the way I was eating. It was the food I was putting inside my body was making a huge difference to how I was feeling every single day. No point. Gastroenterologist, psychologist, counselor, nobody spoke to me about changing my diet. So I kind of gave me
Wow.
a voice to try and start talking to people about what
Yeah.
a foundational difference this can make.
I think our food relationship is very important. And my relationship with food has changed over time as well. And I want to say in one of our previous conversations, your food can dictate your mood.
Yes.
And it's very interesting how your anxiety completely cleared up just from making those few changes in your diet.
Yeah.
And so, do you remember during that time where you were struggling, what kind of foods you gravitated towards? Do you
For
remember?
sure. Yeah, I joke looking back now. I thought I was cooking healthy. We used to do a lot of, it's like American box cooking, right? You grab a chicken breast, you throw in a can of cream of chicken soup on top, and then a box of stovetop and bake it, and canned green beans, and whatever it is you can fill a plate with for a family of 5 very, very quickly. Because I was working as well as trying to manage all these different things. And I know we ate out a lot. We ate a lot of fast food. Bread was staple. Pasta was staple, which was, gluten everywhere, just was triggering a ton of the problems. So yeah, and we did a lot of coupon shopping. We didn't have a huge budget. So whatever was on sale, I would buy the newspapers, I'd get the coupons. So whatever we could get, like 6 cans of, cinnamon rolls, then we would do that because it was really cheap for us to feed our family that way. And I know budget is a huge concern. And what I've learned is you spend in one of two places. You either spend at the grocery store or at the doctor's office. And I learned I'd rather spend at the grocery store. But those are the kinds of things that we were gravitating to. Just pancakes, waffles, anything that wasn't particularly healthy for sure.
I think too, there could be a better approach to nutrition. I think it could start in the education system with teaching kids about the different food groups and what it does. I don't think I was taught necessarily everything I needed to know about food. I kind of grew up in a food desert for me, just, a single mother household. And we just tried to do whatever we could to make ends meet. I think the only good thing that was going for me during that time was I was active physically. So I didn't become morbidly obese or anything like that. I do now looking back on it, my mood, I think, was affected by the sugars, the candies, the McDonald's or whatever. So I think teaching about our relationship with food, I think it'll change someone's life. Whoever's going to listen to this, I feel like it's going to really help someone. And so can you talk about the mind body connection that goes on there with food?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing, well, let's start with, I have a saying that I like to use, and that is that mental health is not all in our head. When
Wow.
it started, I thought that everything that was going wrong was up in here somewhere inside my mind, where I really didn't have control over the outcome. I felt very unsure and insecure about what this was going to do or have me do because it felt very untrustworthy. I don't know how else to explain it. Like I'd wake up one morning and I'd think, I just don't want to live till tomorrow. Okay, well then let's make sure everything's sharp is put away because I don't trust what this is going to do to the rest. And it felt very intangible. I didn't know how to get at it to make it better. And the options that were on the table felt intimidating and scary to me. Medication, a psych stay, I take my kids away. I don't know what this is. So it made it hard to want to approach it. When I discovered that, and I've learned a lot over the last, 9+ years of studying all of this stuff, that most of what goes on up in here is actually really what's going on inside our body, impacting how our brain functions. This is tangible. Like if you break your arm, you know what to do with it. So if something goes wrong with your liver or your intestines or, your heart or something else like that, we have a lot more information about how to resolve those issues. And if you go down the functional path, they open up a whole wide world of how we can go about resolving some of these issues without being so heavy handed about it all. There's sometimes I didn't do very well with some of the medications and things because they felt heavy handed. My body's I'm a bit of a lightweight, to be quite honest. So give me a heavy medication and I am zonked, which is why a quarter of one dose of a pill was enough. So I didn't need a lot. And sometimes these supplements and our amino acid therapy treatments or a castor oil pack or meditation, all of these things that help to resolve and bring balance and equilibrium to the body unit are incredibly powerfully strong at helping the brain without being overwhelming and heavy handed in their approach. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Do
Yes.
you believe that some of our decisions or our choices of food, do you think it's genetic based? Where does genetics fall in?
Well, I think the first thing that springs to mind as far as the genetics is concerned is that we definitely have heritage and descent that impacts what we eat, how we digest it, how we tolerate it. I had my naturopath tell me in the very, very beginning when I was dealing with all these food allergies that some people that she knew had moved to the States and given up and gone back to their home country because the food they were eating in the US was so far removed from their native diet that they were just sick all the time. Their bodies were not coping with it at all. So there's definitely some kind of genetic piece to that. And I know that there are genetic anomalies. We can test and we can see what foods you tolerate well and what foods you don't. I don't get into that genetic piece of it. It's something I'd like to learn more about, but there's definitely a genetic component to it. How, like our environment, then we're raised usually by our birth parents. And that influences, we grew up on meat, potatoes, and peas. I don't know how many meals we ate were meat and potatoes and peas. My mom's repertoire, she'll shoot me if she hears this, was not very wide. So we had cereal for breakfast, we had sandwiches for lunch, and we had meat, potatoes, and peas for dinner. And that's all I grew up on. So when I got to the States and started adding in, even weird and wonderful things because we can easily eat from around the world in the States. You can go out for Thai food or Japanese food or, Korean food or American food or Italian food. We're eating from around the world all the time without thinking about what our heritage was. So a lot of what I talk about too is just getting back to that heritage eating, what we're used to eating.
And I want to say, yeah, heart disease is what, number one
Yeah,
for illness
as
or
far as I
death?
remember.
And
It's up there.
heart disease, cancer, and then
Hmm.
you have diabetes. And
Hmm.
so I know the way I was raised with some of the foods that I ate, I became accustomed to it. It was like let me eat this peach cobbler because it reminds me of home. And so
Hmm.
there was a lot of attachment to
Hmm.
food based on my childhood. But I've never been, tested to where I have diabetes or anything like that.
Hmm.
I've pretty much been healthy, but I noticed a difference in my mood and just my overall feeling
Hmm.
each day. When I eat bad, I feel bad.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It will add up. And I think the older we get, I mean, there's a resilience that goes with being little for the most part. I think, we're running off a million miles an hour, right? But also, I think some of our ingredients have changed. When my grandma, she didn't make peach cobbler because she was very Welsh. She made apple and blackberry pie or apple and blackberry crumble, right? She's making it with apples that have been grown locally. She's making it with blackberries that she's picked or picked up locally. She is making it, yes, with butter and flour and sugar that's going into the crumble topping, but she's making everything from scratch. There's no added fructose, no added corn syrup, no added pie fillers, no added colorings. And a lot of that stuff, Michael Pollan talks about, if we just got back to like scratch cooking at home, then even if we ate some of those things, generally speaking, we'd be so much healthier than we are as a nation,
Absolutely. I agree. And I haven't asked you yet, but for the listeners, what actually is holistic nutrition? What does that mean and what does that look like?
Yeah. So in the conventional world of medicine, we have a lot of specialists, right? Cardiologist, endocrinologist, all these different ologists that we go and see who deal with the specific parts of the body. Holistic nutrition looks at you as a whole being and says, that not only do you need nutrients that come inside of our food, but we also need nutrients like oxygen and we need nutrients like love. These things are all edify and hold up our body and support it. And our body is a whole being. So when we eat something, it impacts many, many different parts of the body. And we have to recognize and understand how all those parts are interconnected. And that's what we lose. We need the specialists, but sometimes when that happens, we lose this interconnected picture of how all the pieces tie together. And that's why I love holistic nutrition, because it just looks at all of the human being.
And your work, I've been looking at your website with sage and sycamore,
Mm-hmm.
or sycamore and sage, excuse
Yes.
me. So in your line of work, are you taking a individual and personalizing a plan specifically for them?
Yeah, in most cases, there are some states where they are title protected, meaning only a registered dietitian can work in that state. And so, as a holistic nutritionist, my credentials don't cover those states. For them, I have a 12-week program where they can go through it and they can learn everything I teach and figure out how to apply it to themselves. So I'm not directly telling them what to do. But for everybody else who wants it, I have the option of doing a concierge level coaching program. You come in, we do delayed food sensitivity testing, we do a metabolomics test, which looks at nutritional deficiencies, organic acids in the body, some neurotransmitter pieces. So it gives us kind of an individual idea of where you're at and where you need support. And then we do basic labs, CBC, CMP, lipid panel, some nutritional deficiencies, iron, copper, zinc ratios, B9, B12. So we're looking at some of those pieces. Thyroid panel hormones, because they're super important too. And then we're taking all this information we've got, plus all of their intake assessments. So nutritional assessment questionnaire, it has over 300 questions. We have a amino acid therapy chart, which looks at all the different neurotransmitters in the body by symptomology, pyroluria as well, which shows us zinc and B6 deficiencies. And we take all that information plus a health history and we build out a custom plan for you based on what your unique bio-individual needs are.
Now, could you answer this question for me? I don't know if this is necessarily a myth or if it's true, but has your research found that certain blood types need to eat certain groups of food? Is that true?
I have definitely seen it. There's a blood type diet book, right? And I have a very good friend, Patty, believes, and teaches all of the blood type diet stuff. So we meet once a week in a mastermind group, and she's always like, what blood type are you? What blood type are you? So I hold it loosely. I think there is some truth to it. And there's definitely some truth to the fact that our A blood types typically have lower stomach acid. They're typically happier on a vegetarian or vegan diet because they need more digestive support and they don't break down their
Interesting.
proteins as well. And I know some people have done really, really well with it. My thought is I just hold it loosely. If it's helpful and beneficial and you don't feel well on those foods, then let's not have you eat them. But if you do fine with it, even if it's on that list, then let's still include it because a ton of those foods are really healthy foods that are on his list.
Okay. And earlier I said, food can change your mood. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking, well, do we become moody because the food we're eating isn't nutrient rich and our brain's starved of that and that's why we
Mhm.
get into these agitated moods?
It's partly what it is. There's a lack of nutrient density in, if you go and get a hamburger from McDonald's or any other fast food establishment, because we're not throwing that one under the bus particularly, but if you go down to one of them, there isn't one that's better, and you grab a hamburger and fries, bring that home, set it on your shelf for 3 months and see what happens to it. Like it
It
won't even
doesn't
deteriorate.
decompose.
It does not
Yeah.
decompose, right? We did that for homework for one of our classes. There is nothing left
Interesting.
nutritionally in there that's going to benefit and help your body. Your body needs several things in order to make neurotransmitters. It's like a recipe, right? So it needs a foundation. It needs protein. protein breaks down as long as your digestive system is working well. It's going to break down, and then your body is going to rebuild those proteins into the proteins it needs all over your body. So it'll take chicken and turn it into part of your immune system, or it'll turn it into your neurotransmitters or cell structure. And the neurotransmitters need different proteins that are found in foods, and our high protein foods. So we need tryptophan to help us make serotonin. We need DL-phenylalanine to help us make tyrosine, and then dopamine eventually. So we need these foundational neurotransmitters. And then we need cofactors. And those cofactors are found in all our fruits and vegetables. There are B vitamins and our copper and our vitamin C and our iron, which sometimes is in meats and sometimes is in plants, more bioavailable in red meat than it is in plants. But we need all of these things. They come together to help the proteins move all the way through the neurotransmitter pathway to become the neurotransmitters that we need. So we start with tryptophan, but then it becomes 5-HTP and serotonin, and then melatonin so we can sleep. If you don't have the right cofactors through that process, it's not going to get to where it needs to go. And there are things that happen in our lives, like inflammation or stress, that actually the body will take that tryptophan and turn it into vitamin B3 because it knows it needs vitamin B3 to survive. It says you can manage without serotonin. You don't have to be happy in life, but you can't manage without B3. So that's what we're going to make instead. So when we deprive our body of these nutrients, the body's constantly trying to recalibrate itself and get back to a level of homeostasis. So yeah, we need all of these different cofactors and primary ingredients. Otherwise, we are just starving our brains.
You know, I just learned something from you. I never knew that it was that important for those neurotransmitters, that our food, what we eat, is helping us to live a balanced life. I know a lot of people that drink water each and every day, but they don't eat the right way. And so in what ways does water play a role in our mental health as well?
Water is a carrier for all our electrolytes, so potassium, calcium, magnesium, and those things all help. We're electrical creatures, right? We're conveying electrical pulses through our bodies at every given time. Just my waving my hand, it's my brain telling my arm to do something, and the nerve impulses happen, and then I have mechanics and motor and all of those things. So when we are short on any of those electrolytes, we can deal with all kinds of issues, including like muscle cramping. So it's not just wet water that we need, it's nutrient-rich water that we need as well with our electrolytes in it. Those electrolytes help us to make our neurotransmitters as well. Like we use calcium in magnesium, and magnesium supports the GABA pathway. Calcium helps in some of that neurotransmitter formation. But water also carries all of our nutrients throughout all of our cells. So when you need to get, you've taken it in, the nutrients in, you now need to deliver them to the cells, and water is one of the ways that happens. So when you're dehydrated, we can see even just 1 or 2% of dehydration that your brain starts to shrink and becomes less functional and
Wow.
less.
That is interesting. Now, does it matter what kind of water I drink? Because there's thousands of different types of water brands. Should I drink something more alkaline? Because our pH level is between 6.5 and 7.5, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so what should we look for when we go to the store? Should we drink, the plastic bottles or glass bottles?
Right. So I have my principles that I encourage on. I can tell you what we do at home too, because we've got to keep a balance of what's real for everyday life and what's practical. So my teacher got to the point where he told us basically there really isn't any clean drinking water options available for you anymore, because our planet is such a contaminated space that we live in. We've got pesticide runoff in the water. We've got every time you take a medication, the primary source of getting that out of your body is urinating. That eventually makes its way back into our drinking water. So our drinking water is just all kinds of contaminated. So if you're going to buy water at the store, the best thing you can do is get glass bottles, or at the very least plastic bottles that don't have any toxic chemicals in them, like BPA, that can get leached in. I just loathe plastic bottled water, and I see horrendous things. We know the plastics mess with our endocrine systems. We know the chemicals in there cause cancer. And yet, Pinktober, when everybody's trying to support and raise money for everybody who's dealing with cancer, breast cancer, you'll see pallets and pallets of water here in Arizona sitting outside in the sunshine, plastic bottles, pink labels on them, soaking up all that heat and transferring those chemicals that cause cancer straight into the water.
Wow.
Like, it's just not a healthy option. Alkaline water, we have several places in our body that are highly, highly acidic. Your mouth is one, your stomach is another, and any of your private parts. And that's because those are entry points to the body. So the body is working very hard to protect you from infection and outside bugs and germs, right? And it does that by keeping spaces highly, highly acidic. If you drink alkaline water, then you are neutralizing that and lowering the acidity. So it makes it harder for you to fight off infection, and it makes it harder for you to break down your proteins. So if you want to drink alkaline water, the best time to do it is actually away from your meal times. Like, you don't want to eat food that maybe has some, mild a level of infection on it, and then your body has nothing to fight it off with because it's now alkalized instead of acidified where it's supposed to be. The one time alkaline water works really well is in fasting, because it tends to turn off the tummy grumbles while you're in that fasted state. So yeah, and then at home we do RO, and we have an RO system that filters our water. It's pretty extensive. They're not perfect. There are Berkey filtration systems that are pretty good, but they're all countertop, which, like, I don't have time to be filling that thing back up and back up and back up. So we use an RO system. We use stainless steel water bottles. We fill up before we go out, and we typically add some kind of electrolyte or essential mineral mix to the water. My husband it works outside, so it's like 112 today. He has water with salt, potassium, calcium, and magnesium in it that he drinks on a consistent basis.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I never knew that about our mouths being more acidic because it's fighting stuff coming in.
Yeah.
And then in our stomachs, it's doing a lot of important things there. And my next question deals with cravings. Specifically sugar. And so how do you break past what you've been doing for so long? Or let's say you have, you're in a bad mood and you want to grab some candy to get that dopamine release. How do you combat that to get on the right track?
I say we come at that from a couple of different angles. The first thing we're doing is making sure that you're eating protein every 3 hours. That's going to give your body a couple of things. One, it's not going to stimulate this sugar high, sugar low, because there's basically no insulin response when you eat protein, unless you're eating it tied in with vegetarians and vegans. They're a whole different story, where they're leaning into a lot of carbohydrate laden proteins. So sometimes it's a bit harder. If you're having meat proteins, it's eliciting virtually no insulin response, and it's keeping your blood sugar nice and stable. That stops that cycle of craving. When you eat high carbohydrate food, it raises your blood sugar very high. Your insulin has to respond. It drives sugars down quite low, and then starts these feelings that can range everywhere from sad and lonely and depressed to suicidal, angry, aggressive, falling into behaviors like theft, shoplifting. Like, it can trigger all kinds of behaviors, and even relapse into addiction as well, alcohol and drugs. So,
wow.
And then we want to fix that because we feel terrible. The body says, quickest fix I know how to get is sugar, because the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that is responsible for your executive decision making, is offline, and it is so hungry. It just doesn't know what to do with itself. And so it says the quickest way to get glucose up here is that sugary thing you had before. So I'm going to do that. You grab it, you eat it, you start the cycle all over again. So we counter it by doing protein every 3 hours, and that stops this sugar high, sugar low all day long. The second thing I would say is that we can do a lot with amino acid therapy to help curb those cravings. So aminos are the tiniest part of a protein. When we break it down, that's what they become, is these amino acids. And so we can supplement with different things like L-tryptophan or DL-phenylalanine or L-glutamine, and we can do a lot to help prevent some of those sugar cravings. If your cravings are coming at like 4 in the afternoon, there's sort of a natural serotonin dip at that point in the day. And it becomes very easy to crave a little bit of 5-HTP, like 50 milligrams, or a little bit of L-glutamine at that point in the day can turn those cravings off pretty quickly. If our addicts are struggling, we will have them grab L-glutamine capsules and just open 2 or 3 of them under their tongue and just swish around in a little bit of water. It gets straight in. The mouth is highly absorbent or absorbent, so it will absorb those aminos very quickly and get to the brain. And L-glutamine is a tiny bit sweet. It's got a tiny bit of glucose in there, so it actually feeds that front cortex
Wow.
very, very quickly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so those are the couple of things we can do. Now, supplements, you have to be careful. They can interact with medications. I just have to be careful and say that L-glutamine is not wise if you have a cancer diagnosis. So I just don't want people running out and just thinking, I'm going to try this and then
Yeah,
getting themselves into trouble.
absolutely. And so when you spoke about the protein, are there some examples for our listeners that the good proteins that they need to be taking every 3 hours?
Yeah, I do a couple of different things. Like the closest you can get to how nature intended is the best, right? So we might do meats are super easy. We do clean though, organic, grass fed, wild caught, as much as possible. And yeah, it comes with an expense, and I know it does. But when we are struggling with mental health issues in general, those pesticides and herbicides can really interfere with brain chemistry. So, we're trying to step away from that. This is the clientele that I'm dealing with, right? So, cleaning up organic meats as much as you can. And then, if you want to do beans, nuts, seeds, then you can do those too. I highly recommend them being soaked and sprouted. A lot of the hoopla we hear, like in fad science today, about these otherwise healthy foods are really detrimental to your digestive system and you shouldn't eat them. A lot of the problem is that we don't practice slow food anymore. We don't take time to soak our grains. We don't take time to soak our beans or our nuts and our seeds before we eat them. And that's been done for millennia of generation before ours. We're just in such a hurry to get everything made that we don't take the time to slow down and eat slow food. So those are some options. Sometimes if you don't have delayed food allergies, you can do Greek yogurt or string cheese or something along those lines to just keep that blood sugar steady.
And that was my next question, was to ask about dairy. You kind of went into that a little bit there. Now, there's obviously been some studies on dairy and how it's bad for you and stuff like that. What is your take on that with cheeses?
With cheeses and milk and
Cheeses,
ice
milk.
cream and all of it. Yeah. um, it is a rare thing when I do delayed food sensitivity testing for me to have any clients that are not allergic to dairy or don't have a delayed sensitivity to dairy in some way, shape, or
Wow.
form. I meet an awful lot of adults who are lactose intolerant, which is the milk sugars. But that causes IBS, diarrhea, and so you're not absorbing your nutrients. Everything's moving through your digestive tract too quickly. So many, many people have struggles just with their sensitivity to the proteins that are inside dairy. Casein, which is the primary protein inside dairy, gets into the brain and causes casomorphines to be developed. And so it makes like the most addictive food on the planet is a good slice of pizza, right? Because it's got gluten, which creates gliomorphines, and casein, which creates casomorphines in the brain. And it's just, I've had people who've sat down and said, if I eat one slice, I've got to eat the entire pizza because they are so addicted to cheese and to bread. So there are those issues, but we've also seen studies done where they had a group of young offenders, and when they took away their dairy and replaced it with orange juice of all things, the rates of violent crime inside this juvenile detention center dropped statistically, just simply
Hmm.
because they took their dairy away. So we know it impacts the brain and how it functions, not to mention that it's generally, it's full of great growth hormones for a baby cow. It's trying to grow this little cow, which is very big, into an enormous cow. And then we've got all this milk, sugar, and all of that our bodies are trying to deal with. And we're looking at prevalent rates of diabetes and osteoporosis. You think for a country that eats as much dairy as we do, you'd think we'd have, because everybody knows if you ask, what's the key nutrient that we all need in dairy? And it's calcium. Why do we have such horrible rates of osteoporosis for our senior adults? some of it's diet and lifestyle, but some of it is because the cow's milk is not really the most beneficial thing or the most helpful way for us to get our calcium in.
So that cow's milk is not intended for humans. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying, yeah, for the most part. I mean, like if you want to have milk, goat's milk is pretty close to human milk in its structure, and goats are a much smaller animal, so you're not going to deal with so much of the weight and obesity issues that sometimes come with dairy. I'm not saying they always come with dairy, but sometimes they do. So definitely. And the fermenting process helps deal with some of these pieces. But like I said, most of the people that come into my office are struggling with food sensitivities. And when that milk is not organic, it's full of pus cells, and our body has to deal with and process all of that. And so you're just giving it one extra load to have to work through. I miss ice cream. I've got to be really honest, probably because of the sugars. I miss ice cream and the cream, flavor. But again, I've managed for the last probably 21 years now without dairy. And maybe I shouldn't say I'm doing fine, because maybe if somebody look at the outside and go, well, I don't know, but I've managed without dairy for this long. There's enough alternatives that make it, we can manage without it if we have serious intolerances to it.
And Jayne, I'm just gonna compliment you. You look really awesome. Like you
Thank
look
you.
healthy. You look vibrant, and it's like you're glowing.
Thank you.
And I guess that's a reflection of how you eat. Speaking about ice cream, what really turned me off to ice cream was there was a video I watched with a ice cream sandwich. You might have seen it before, specifically a Great Value ice cream sandwich. And they did a test on it. They sat it outside for like a day and it did not melt. Then they put it on a barbecue grill. It still did not melt. So it's just all these ingredients and stuff are just really harmful, and it's making our body like work extra. And so I started looking into what's called intermittent fasting, just learning about that. And when we're not eating and we're allowing our gut to rest, now our body can start repairing. So can you speak on that for the audience a little bit?
A little bit. Fasting by far was not my favorite subject. And so being a reactive hypoglycemic, which is a condition where my blood sugar can drop very easily down into the 50s without me even really being aware. And the next thing I know, I'm like, I don't even feel like eating, but I don't understand why I can't think straight either. So eating consistently for me has been key, and fasting is hard because my blood sugars just get too low. So that being said, intermittent fasting gives your body a break from food for a set period of time during the day. Minimum of 12 hours. I've seen people go up as high as 16 hours, sometimes as high as 20, where they're getting in all of their calories for the day in one small window during the day, and the rest of the day they're letting their body rest. So this works. I've seen diabetics do quite well sometimes doing this, where they're just giving their body a rest, because their body, we can almost think about diabetes as sort of a carbohydrate intolerance. So they're giving their body a break from doing the work of trying to process all that stuff all of the time. To be very careful with their insulin. Please be careful if you're using insulin. Don't just quit eating and still use it. It'll be disastrous. Yeah. But we have also seen for some people that this is not the best fit, and it can actually dysregulate their hormones. So especially women who are struggling with autoimmune disease, they tend to do better doing longer day fasts than doing intermittent fasting. So they might do better doing a 2-day or a 3-day water fast than doing this cycling on and off with their foods. And I think it goes back to many of the other things that we've talked about today, and that is that we really are unique bio-individuals. And so what works for your neighbor because it's cool and trendy and they're doing great with it might not be the best fit for you. We've had to have conversations about what is working for your body and what's putting stress on your body that's adding to this ongoing layer of chronic inflammation that's leading to this chronic disease. Could be something as simple as your body feels like it's starving for 16 hours a day. And really all you need to do is just have a really good 12-hour break. Don't eat after sundown. Let your body rest through the night. do its thing, clean up your brain, digest, give it a break from digesting food, let the gut clean itself up and heal and repair its lining, and then get up the next day and break your fast, but not with sugary junk, with something that's going to keep you stable all the way till lunchtime.
I've been more cognizant about the times I eat. I'm not perfect, right? But I'm more aware of what I eat before it's time for me to go to bed. Like I'll cut
Hmm.
off my eating window 7 p.m. That way my brain and everything can relax and I can actually have a good night's rest. Um, the biggest benefit too that I've seen with fasting was my energy was better, and then there
Good.
was tremendous fat loss.
Hmm.
So do you feel like, well, what way does fat play in? Is it really an indicator of disease coming? Or I know that that was kind of a thing with diabetics that they would have, I think for men, they would have a lot of fat around their midsection.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of visceral fat too. Like we can't see it. It's coating the organs on the inside of the body. So the problem with excessive amounts of fat is that it tends to hang on to toxins. Some of
Mm.
our vitamins are fat soluble. Most of our toxins are. So when you're holding on to a lot of excess weight with fatty tissue, you are doing a couple of things. You are holding on to an awful lot of toxins inside the body. And then you are also, the second thought is just absolutely floated away from my brain. So we will skip that one for a minute until it comes back. But you are definitely hanging on to a lot of those toxins. And so rapid weight loss becomes very dangerous because what you're doing is dumping all of those toxins into your bloodstream. Your body, your lymphatic system, and all of that has to clean that up very rapidly. And it becomes very difficult. It overloads and burdens the body. So these rapid weight loss programs or products that we're seeing at the moment, where we're taking medication to help us lose weight, and we've had 13, 20, 30 pounds weight loss in my first month, your
Whoa.
body is having to deal with all that stuff that's being dumped in there. I would far rather you lost weight at, you might see 4 or 5 pounds in the first 10 days or so. It's usually water weight that's going, but then just slow, steady, a pound or two a week is way more appropriate, so that your body has enough time to process everything that it's letting go of.
Are you an advocate for detoxes or cleanses?
I think I've heard people say, oh my gosh, we don't need detoxes. Your body knows exactly what it's supposed to do. In truth, looking at genetics, our bodies are very often compromised and their detox pathways are not working as efficiently as they should do. I don't think my liver works as well as it should. And I know that if I do a castor oil pack, just, put castor oil on the outside of my liver, and then I put a flannel over the top of it. I sit there with a heat pad on for a couple of hours. It's like a spa day at home. But the next day I wake up and my thinking is clearer, my energy is better, because it's helped relieve some of that toxicity burden off of the liver. It's helped it to move everything through. So I don't think our systems function as well as they do. I don't think we need to be extreme. Sometimes I see these, drink lemon juice and hot peppers or whatever else, I don't know, for 3 days straight, and then you'll feel amazing. I don't know that we need to be that extreme, but there are things that we can put into our diet that help us to detox better. Keeping the bowels moving is super important. Making sure your kidneys are functioning, that's super important. There's two primary detox ways that your body does that. You can do sauna, or a hot bath, that will help you to sweat and you lose toxins that way as well. And then when we breathe out, we're also letting go of toxins. So a breathing practice is very good. And then detox foods that we can put in our diet, things like cilantro or parsley, they are naturally chelating foods, meaning they grab hold of toxins inside the body and help to carry them out naturally, as long as you are defecating the way that you're supposed to and you're not constantly chronically constipated. So we can support it. We can support it. I don't know that we have to go on massive detox programs unless you are chronically ill, and then under the care of a functional physician who can help you to get, heavy metals out or something else like that. That might be appropriate. But just for the everyday average Joe, support it, but I don't think you need to go crazy.
Can you speak on what's going on in the gut, all the healthy things that that need to be functioning properly for us to digest food and process food properly? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, it's quite a process. It starts, if you think about it, like if you look at your torso, there's only a couple of organs inside your torso that don't have anything to do with digestion, like your heart and your lungs. That's about it. Everything else has to do with digestion. So you eat your food, or when you slow down to chew enough, then you're already creating enzymes in your saliva that are beginning to break down the food into their smallest parts. So if you're racing your foods or drinking a smoothie that's already been pre-chewed for you, you lose the enzyme activity that starts in your mouth. You're going to swallow your food, and it's going to make its way into your stomach. Your stomach's primary job mostly is to break down proteins, and it has to have several factors in order to make that happen. One of those is adequate stomach acid. So just think about how many people are on antacid medications that are
Mm.
lowering their stomach acid so they can't break things down as well as they'd like to. We need some other agents in there as well. And then it moves into the first part of the small intestine. We have the duodenum, the jejunum, and the small intestine. And in that space, your pancreas is releasing more digestive enzymes to help with things that aren't protein, mostly your carbohydrates. And it's releasing, prompting the gallbladder to release bile that helps you to process your fats. You have enzymes that help you process your fats, and then you have bile that helps to stick to them and break them down and get them transported wherever you need to go.
So
Go ahead.
no, no, no. You can wait. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. When you eat fats, the first place, your body doesn't take them straight to your liver, it takes them straight to your heart. So if you are eating unhealthy fats, the first place that gets fed fat inside your body is your heart. Before it gets to any other, then it makes it to the bloodstream,
Whoa.
and then it gets processed through the liver. So that plate of fries that's covered in seed oil that is already damaged is making its way straight to your heart instead of some healthy fish oil, like a piece of salmon. That fat makes it straight to your heart and supports the heart health. Then it makes its way through. We've got the liver doing its thing. We've got the large intestine is mostly responsible, kind of clearing out waste. If things get stuck, like you constipated, then it starts reabsorbing the toxins from the large intestine back into the bloodstream. So you have to, joke about getting constipated makes you feel crappy, because it really does. All the toxins are making their way back into the body and have to be processed again. So
Wow.
yeah, fiber's responsible for helping to keep moving things through, but you need good thyroid function, adequate nutrition, fats, fibers, and all of that to keep everything moving through. So yeah, that's kind of how it works.
Very interesting. So if someone is pooping once a day, is that healthy? What's a healthy amount to be going to the restroom?
Yeah, we say 1 to 3 times a day. Our teacher always said 1 major bowel movement for every major meal that you eat, because eating should stimulate the digestive tract to do its thing. So you might find you eat a meal and then you need to go to the bathroom. And then we're aiming for like 2 major meals and 1 lighter meal in the day. So 2 to 3 bowel movements, but 1 is okay. That's most people's normal. I start getting concerned when I've got clients in my office who are skipping, they have a bowel movement every other day or every third day,
Wow.
or they're having bowel movements 3 to 6 times a day or more, and they are not absorbing the nutrients because the stuff is moving through their system way, way too quickly. So we're just trying to get to that beautiful. We talk about poop a lot. We have to talk about what's going in. We have to talk about what's coming out.
Yeah. Um, so with same thing with urine, right? Just the way it looks that can
Mm-hmm.
tell you how hydrated or dehydrated you are.
Yeah, if it's completely clear coming out, then you are not peeing out any of your nutrients anymore. And you are really probably struggling with some level of dehydration. And one of the things that I run into often is that the more dehydrated you are, I don't know why, but the more dehydrated you are, the more you pee. But if I get a drink with like electrolytes and those kinds of things in them, then it tends to help me retain the hydration better than it does if I'm just simply drinking water all day long. So yeah, and then there's other drinks that dehydrate us, right? So drinks that are high in caffeine have a tendency to help flush fluids out of the body and can end up causing dehydration quite easily. And if you've been taking your B vitamins, then your pee will be neon yellow. If you have been eating beets, then it might be pink. Sometimes that happens. Even red dragon fruit will do the same thing. And if you've been eating asparagus, it might smell very strongly of asparagus, because this is what happens. The body is processing out those things through your urine.
And I might make a lot of listeners upset with this one, but caffeine in
Yes.
particular, I know we haven't touched on that, but what is that doing? Do we need it? Or is this just something that we grown accustomed to?
I think the first thought that popped into my head is that we live in a society in the US where we are go, 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 go all the time. And we don't want to miss out on anything. And so we have a tendency to lean into products that help us to stay awake, keep focused, keep going. If we're in school, well, it's okay. You just got to pull an all-nighter. You just got to get your studies done. It's okay that you're working 2 jobs and trying to get your education done. All you got to do is just do what you need to do for right now to get through those. And take it from a girl who does love at least one, either good cup of tea or a good cup of coffee in the morning. But that's it. I don't have any more caffeine all day long. Like, it just helps me to be a little bit more alert. But it is really hard on you when you have it all day long, or you have high quantities. I have very weak coffee. There's a lot of people that might say that it's not actually really coffee. So when we have very strong coffee or a lot of caffeine, sodas, with caffeine in them, or even just energy and alert drinks, with a lot of caffeine in them, we are actually taxing our adrenal system and our cortisol
Mm,
when we do that. And we're causing the adrenal glands to overproduce an awful lot of cortisol in response to its stress. It releases all of these stress hormones and produces cortisol in response to that. So we end up driving ourselves. We can end up flipping our cortisol patterns by using caffeine too much throughout the day. People with chronic disease, autoimmune disease especially, might be even more sensitive to those things. And so giving yourself a season where you take it out, give yourself a week to get through the headaches, then you may find at the other side of it that you actually do feel better and brighter, and you don't need it as much. For me, it's as much about the comfort. I drink water for the rest of the day. So for me, it's nice to have one thing in the day that doesn't taste like water.
I've gotten to the place now where I have a cup of coffee every other day. And I
Very
think
nice. Okay.
just for me doing that, I think it's telling of how my other systems are functioning in my body.
Mm,
It's not a dependency. I'm getting my energy from sleeping good, eating
yes.
healthy. So now I'm not dependent on a Red Bull or whatever
Right.
energy drink it is. So I think that could be a very telling sign too to someone if they're drinking 2 or 3 energy drinks a day. I mean,
Oh my goodness.
I've seen it.
Yeah, I have a family member who shall remain nameless, who for a very long time lived on a lot of Red Bull. And, he said to me afterwards, I can't believe how much chest pain I was having until I stopped. I just didn't know. And the thing is, it creates this cycle, doesn't it? You talked about sleep in very easily taken past 11, 12, 1 in the afternoon. For a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people, it disrupts their sleep. And then what
Yes.
do we do when we have disrupted sleep? We feel groggy and horrible the next morning. We think, oh my goodness, I have to have a cup of coffee to get me going and move me forward for the rest of my day. So then you grab another cup of coffee, which disturbs your sleep, which makes you think you need another cup of coffee in the morning. So taking it out often does improve quality of sleep. So we just say 1 to 2 cups, 8-ounce cups of coffee in the morning, and then call it good.
And you said it taxes your adrenal systems.
Hmm.
It's honestly putting you in that fight or flight response if you really
Yeah.
think about it, because it's activating that sympathetic part where your heart rate raises, your
Hmm.
breathing is faster.
Hmm.
So, yeah, we're taxing that system where we only really need to use that system in dire situations,
Absolutely. We're putting our
right?
bodies into a state of hyperarousal, which would have
Wow.
only happened in our caveman days if we were like faced by a bear and deciding what to do, whether we were going to attack and feed our family or whether we were going to run away, right? That we would have had time afterwards to rest and recalibrate that system. But we don't anymore. Like I said, our society here is go, 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 go. And it's getting worse in the UK. It's busier like that now. But growing up, and certainly the first 10 years of my living in the States, when we go home, it is a much, much slower pace. that generally, shops close. My husband and I wanted to go out on a date one evening and leave the kids with the grandma and granddad, and everywhere was closed at 5:30 p.m. We couldn't go anywhere because the shops closed. People go home to be with their families. Workplaces closed. They get extended time off through Christmas, summer vacation. They really take care of people. And if they're burnt out and exhausted, they don't say very often, here's a prescription for antidepressants, here's a prescription for benzos. They say, we're writing you off of work for 2 weeks. Go home and rest. You can't go to
Wow.
work, right?
That sounds like
your body's overloaded.
Sounds like I need to go visit the UK.
Yeah, right.
That's interesting.
It's got its flaws and its benefits for sure.
Have you ever came across the literature called the China Study?
Yeah. Yes, a long time ago.
From my take on that, they did their research on a group of people that were eating a certain way. They lived longer and they were healthier.
Mm.
And so since I'm in the US, you're in the US, the trends right now, there's obviously diet fads.
Mm-hmm.
There's gyms popping up all over the place. But I think the way it seems now, you have to be more proactive than ever about what you put in your body. Essentially, you are what you eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you are what you can absorb. So if your digestive tract is a mess and full of holes, I can't take credit for it. My teacher was always, you are what you can absorb. So if your digestive tract is full of holes and you've got leaky gut and you're inflamed and all the rest of it, then you're not going to absorb the nutrients that you need to absorb. But yeah, we do have to be proactive. And part of it is because we can no longer trust, and this is really hard to say, but we really cannot trust food manufacturers to put shelf stable foods on our grocery store shelves that are actually good for us anymore. What is up there is really good for the bottom line of most grocery industry, big agriculture farmers and producers. It's watching their bottom line, but it's not always really taking care of the health of the individual. So when you think you're eating healthy and you're walking up and down those center aisles and you're like, well, I'm going to grab these whole wheat crackers and I'm going to get this whole wheat bread and I'm going to get this can of green beans, right? There's just they've taken out a lot of the nutrients, added artificial vitamins and minerals back in. They are got so many preservatives in them. And it's this there's a really big movement and the catchphrase ultra processed foods right now. So we went through the era of homemade into processed, and now we're at this ultra processed food stage where so much of what we eat has gone through so many steps and it is no longer really got any nutritive value by the time it lands on our plate. So getting back away from that to cooking from scratch at home, which is easier than you think. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be Gordon Ramsay to cook at home. You can do some very simple soups and stews and do it from scratch. It's just a whole lot better for you than going up and down those center aisles at the grocery store.
And to be honest, Gordon Ramsay, if he saw what we were cooking, he'd probably throw it in the trash anyway.
Yeah, he would, but he doesn't have to eat it, right? I saw him criticize his mother's apple pie, so, the man has no scruples.
So, and we're coming to a close, but I'm really enjoying this conversation. It's been eye-opening for me as well. There's some things I need to do or take inventory of. Now, I could tell you this. In my pantry, I don't have any snacks. I don't have any candies, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. I drink water most of the day. I may or may not have a cup of coffee, depending on what time it is, what time I wake up. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing those things. What tips or tools would you give our listeners where they can leave this episode and start their journey towards being healthier?
Yeah, I think I start with just a couple of basics. Number one, start getting your protein in every 3 hours. It is amazing how much your cravings go away and how satiated you feel if you can just consistently do that throughout the day. And then I say start cleaning up your pantry. So if you use peanut butter, so many people do, then swap it out when you run out. Just swap it out for organic peanut butter and make that replacement, right? If you're using strawberry jelly at home, swap it out. We're just working on cleaning things up in the very beginning. So just start swapping things out. And then the last thing I would say is start trying and experimenting by getting in enough veggies and fruits in a day. So we want 5 to 9 servings of vegetables in a day, which isn't difficult to do if you start throwing, half a dozen disguised vegetables like zucchini disappears really well into spaghetti sauce if you blend it all in together, right? So how can you start, if you don't like veggies, how can you start incorporating them without tasting them? Or how can you just get really, really adventurous? Go down to your local grocery store, pick a new vegetable that you have no idea what to do with, and then figure out what you're going to do with it this week. Find a video on YouTube, or there are thousands of people out there willing to tell you what to do with these things. Find a recipe that goes with it. Start including 1 or 2 new vegetables this week. And maybe you don't need as many fruits, maybe 2 to 4 servings of fruit, depending on your diabetic load. But just try something new. Try dragon fruit, try golden berries,
Yeah.
try something different. Get adventurous.
Now, in working with your clients, do you have anyone that's like usually bumping heads with someone in their household? Let's say they're married, they want to eat healthy, but the other person doesn't. How do you figure that
Yeah.
out?
Yeah, sometimes that's really hard because we actually need the support of the people around us to make good choices. It's really hard if you're trying to clean up your pantry and keep out the foods that are tempting you all the time, and the other person constantly brings that stuff into the house. So, my encouragement in those situations, as much as is possible, is to find somebody outside of the house that will support you, who will, you can go to and say, oh my gosh, it's terrible. And all this stuff is in the house. But I did really good today because I chose not to do that. I chose not to sabotage my health. I chose instead to support my health. So you want somebody, even if they're not at home, who can really come alongside you and walk that journey with you and help you figure out the steps as you go through.
And then on the other side, when you start taking your health serious, the people around you, they're going to notice
Hmm.
and they're going to be like, well, I want to do that too. I want to feel energetic and happy. And so that, it's ultimately in your choice, but that support
Hmm.
system is vital. So with your website, is there anything you're working on in particular that's new or anything for the listeners?
Yeah, I have to pull it together, but I am hoping to do a sugar detox starting in July. I think we're going to do it the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. I'm hoping to have this all pulled together. It shouldn't be too hard because I've got all the pieces. I just need to put them in one portal where you can go and do the whole course together. But just having a week's worth of little micro lessons, like 3 to 5 minutes of this is all about sugar. This is how it's not really supporting your health. These are things you can do instead. This is how to clean your pantry out. This is what to do when you've got cravings. So to work through that with folks over the course of 3 weeks so that they can just feel like they're getting a handle on probably one of the most important things they will ever do for their health, to get that blood sugar
Yeah.
regulated.
And then you said that's this month,
July.
July.
Yeah. 14, 21, and 28.
Hmm. I might be signing up for that. Just
That
just
would
to
be very, very cool.
reiterate everything and to just fortify the
Hmm.
the foundation for me. Do you does your family do meal planning?
Well, the answer is heck yeah, because if we go to the grocery store and we don't have a plan, I am absolutely lost. I am a
Got it.
nuts and bolts and details girl. So you could just give me a wide open thing and go make something. I have friends who are like, I pulled this together with this together. And it turned out to this gourmet meal. And I'm like, if I don't have the ingredients, we're in a whole lot of trouble. So yes, I meal plan. My meal plan has not changed. What's worked for us has worked for us really well. We have a good variety during the week. I am just changing some things up. Eating seasonally is important, and eating for the temperature too. So when it's really hit 108, 110, 112 here at the moment, it is too hot for soups and stews and these grounding, warming winter foods. We're doing a lot more salads, and cooling foods, cucumber and that kind of thing. So yeah, we do plan though, because I would be lost. And there's nothing worse than getting halfway through a meal and going, I don't have that one thing I needed. So I have to now leave what I'm doing, run to the grocery store, pick it up, finish the meal prep. I like to be prepared.
So what is a meal that you tend to go to when you don't have time? Like a quick meal that you normally do?
Most of my meals can be made in 15 to 30 minutes, which I tell people often, like if you get in a car and drive to a drive-through and then sit in the queue and then wait for your food and then drive all the way back home again, Like you've probably spent 20 to 30 minutes going and doing that. DoorDash has made that very dangerous. Like they'll just bring it straight to you. But we do a lot. Like I have soups that I can make in less than 30 minutes. On the weekend, I will do a crock pot full of chicken drumsticks. We can't be told that we are adventurous and crazy because we don't mix things up very much. But I will take that crock pot of chicken drumsticks. I can buy a 3-pack of those at Costco for about $10 or $11. And it will make probably 1, 2, 3, 4 meals for us easily, just pulling the meat off of those bones. And so we use them to make soups and we use them to make salads. I've got the greens already ready to go. The most difficult one I have calls for some rice and some sweet potatoes in the salad. So they require being cooked up on the day of. But they could certainly be prepped in advance too. I just don't. But yeah, most of my meals, I can't be bothered with standing in the kitchen forever. I have a business to run. I have family I want to be with. Yeah. So we do them as quick as we can.
Have you noticed also that the whole idea behind family meals, sitting together and eating their food, you don't see that as often anymore? Like people get their food and they go sit in front of the TV. I think that's a missing part of this as well for eating healthy as well.
Yeah, when we're watching TV, I've heard people say, they go as far as to say, don't even read while you're eating. Don't watch reels while you're eating on your phone at lunchtime at the table. Don't watch TV while you're eating because you're not being mindful of what you're putting in. You're often eating too fast. You're not chewing properly. And we need relationships with the people that are closest to us, that are in our families. And one of the best ways we can do that and foster that is around the table. I know it was not an option growing up. We had to sit at the table and we benefit greatly as a family. My kids are grown and flown. But when we are sitting around the table as a family, some of the best conversations happen then and some of the best family bonding time. So I think it's a really special time.
Yeah. And you can see your work, like if you're the cook, you see everyone just like, oh, this is really good.
We played a game once where the kids they had to rate on a scale of 1 to 10 what was the worst meals over the last 20 years that mom has ever made. And they certainly had some on their list that they did not like as they were growing up. So, yeah.
Jayne, it's been a pleasure having you on. What are some ways that people can get in touch with you? And can you talk about your website just a little bit more so people know how to find you?
Yeah, you can find me at sycamoreandsagenutrition.com. It's long. I haven't figured out yet how to create a website that's nice and short. But you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram at the Mental Health Nutrition Coach. And that's my handle on there. And that has my link to my bio. So you can find my website from there too. I have a contact form on there. I'd love to get in touch with you. And on the website, you can see the 12-week program that we have. And then there's a section that has like this podcast will be up on there. And when I get a recording for it, just so you can listen to different interviews I've done, there's a section for learning, blog posts, and the courses that you can take as well. So it's also a page for some of the supplements or packages or labs that we offer too. So you can go and scout it all out and see if you can figure out where you need help. And if you don't know, reach out. I have a free chat and check-in for about 30 minutes just to see if I can help you answer your questions and see if we're a good fit for working together.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jayne. I definitely believe you're on the front line of combating the mainstream idea of food and nutrition. And I appreciate your work. And I'm grateful that you came on today just to share your knowledge with us. I'm definitely going to look at maybe joining in July and see if I have time to do that. I need to learn more about sugar. It's been a major part of my life, mainly negative, just my mood being bad or whatever. So thank you. You've opened my eyes tremendously today. And I hope that the rest of this year goes well for you and that you continue your journey. Absolutely. And if you need anything from me, just let me know and I'll talk to you later.
All right. That's wonderful. Thank you so much again for having me and giving a voice and a platform for a few minutes to this topic because it is so important. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And you have a great day. Okay.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.